Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because I'm going to give you guys my spoiler-free review of one of my most anticipated movies of the year. In fact, my most anticipated movie of this year, Spider-Man No Way Home. It stars Tom Holland, Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx, Jacob Batalon, and many more. And it is directed by Jon Watts, who helmed Homecoming and Far From Home. And if you guys haven't seen my Spider-Man movie reviews, don't forget, they are on a playlist on my channel. All of those reviews have been uploaded from 2002 all the way to Far From Home, so don't forget to check that out while you can. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And like I said before, no spoilers. I am going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible, but I will make a spoiler review for this movie at some point over the next few days, hopefully to get it out soon. And that's when we discuss spoilers. So please, if you have seen this movie, do not spoil away in the comments. I do not want people to watch this video and see spoilers are listed. So please save that for my inevitable spoiler review so we can keep this review as spoiler-free as possible. And with that said, let's get started. Set after the events of Far From Home, Peter Parker's identity as Spider-Man has been revealed to the entire world, and he goes to ask Doctor Strange for help to cast a spell to undo this from ever happening, but it all goes horribly wrong, and villains from other universes come to their universe to kill Spider-Man. No Way Home, I absolutely loved. This is easily my favorite movie in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy. No Way Home it exceeded my expectations and just it surpassed them. Like, this was already my most anticipated movie of the year, but it even went above and beyond with what this movie was going to do, and it surprised me so much, and it is easily my favorite theater experience I have had since opening night of Avengers Endgame back 2 years ago. And this was such a surprise. I absolutely loved this movie from beginning to end. And to kick off the positives, I thought Jon Watts did such a great job directing this movie. I enjoyed what he did with Homecoming and Far From Home, but this is easily his magnum opus at the moment. I loved how he was able to take Spider-Man in a very darker direction. Like, this is a much darker movie than Homecoming and Far From Home. So if you're very used to Homecoming and Far From Home being a lot more lighthearted and more comedic, and you're hoping this movie will be like that, that ain't the case here. This is a much more darker movie, a lot more focused on Spider-Man, and it is surprisingly an extremely emotional movie. There's a lot more heart to be had in this movie, and Jon Watts and the writers of this movie did a great job writing all of these characters and doing them to the best of their ability. They did such a great job, and Jon Watts was just so great handling everything in this movie and taking it in a direction that he wants it to. And I'm so excited to see what he's going to do with the Fantastic Four movie and beyond. Another thing I want to mention that I loved is just the acting. This is easily Tom Holland's best performance as Spider-Man to date. Really liked him acting-wise ever since we saw him in Captain America Civil War. But here, this is just the best acting I've ever seen him deliver. He really channels just the rage, the emotions, and the heart. He just captures all of it so well, and he looks like he's fully in the moment of what is happening on screen. And he blew me away. I absolutely was riveted by his performance in this film. Just especially with Zendaya, because he and Zendaya their relationship is such a big aspect of this movie. And I really like their chemistry together and all that. And Tom Holland was just amazing, and I loved him. I've always loved him as this character, but this is easily the best he's ever been as the iconic wall crawler, and I absolutely loved him in this movie. Zendaya, I thought, was really great as Michelle Jones here. Because of what happened with Far From Home, I really like what she got to do here, especially when it comes to the emotional moments and even some of the more fun moments that happened earlier on in the movie. Zendaya is great. And Jacob Batalon is great as Ned as well. He doesn't do as much here as he did in the previous two movies, but I've enjoyed what he has to offer here. There's some fun moments to be had with Ned. And Alfred Molina, I loved him. If you've seen my review of Spider-Man 2, you know that Doc Ock is my all-time favorite villain to come out of any Spider-Man movie. And I was really looking forward to seeing him in this movie, especially the more looks we got of him in this movie. And he was amazing. They really honored his character arc from Spider-Man 2, and No Way Home doesn't once feel like it was ruining his arc from that movie. And this Alfred Molina's, the de-aging on him looks so good, especially because they're trying to pull that Doc Ock straight from 2004 into this movie, and he was so good as his character. And this definitely, he acted so well as Doc Ock in this movie, especially with the scenes with Tom Holland and Willem Dafoe and numerous other things he does in this movie. And even with the action that he's in this movie is great. I absolutely loved Alfred Molina in this movie. And not a spoiler because this is in the trailer. So anything I mention that's in the trailer is not a spoiler, at least to me. But Willem Dafoe, man, he just nails it as Green Goblin. He was pitch perfect as Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man movie, but here he is just phenomenal. He steals the scene whenever he's on screen. He's menacing, he's dangerous, and he is easily the most dangerous villain that Tom's Spider-Man has ever fought. And it is just so, like, I was mesmerized whenever Willem was on screen, and I love his scenes with Tom Holland and all of these other characters, and Willem Dafoe could do no wrong. I love him. He is such a terrific actor, especially in movies like The Lighthouse, and just seeing him play this character again, I never thought was going to happen, but here we are, and I'm so glad he got the chance to play him again, because not only was he amazing in Spider-Man 2002, but he was also amazing in No Way Home, and he is just an absolute delight on screen. Benedict Cumberbatch, I really liked as Doctor Strange. Surprisingly, he does a lot more here than he has in Infinity War, and I really liked him in this movie, and just seeing what kind of role he has here, because the marketing promotes him heavily, especially with the situation Spider-Man and him are both in. There is a lot of really cool moments that happen with Doctor Strange in this movie, and I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was really great as the Sorcerer Supreme in this movie, so I really enjoyed him here, especially with a lot of the scenes they have with Tom Holland. And what I also liked is they didn't go the mentor route with Homecoming with Iron Man, Far From Home with Nick Fury, who was actually Talos. I like that with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. They didn't have, he wasn't like a mentor. They were just colleagues. They were just having to work together to fix the spell that went horribly wrong. And I like that you still have Spider-Man on his own, but you still have Doctor Strange trying to, be a part of all this. And I like that they didn't have to make him a mentor, because I was hoping they wouldn't do that, but thankfully they didn't. But Benedict Cumberbatch and Tom Holland are just so great together, especially from those bits we saw in Infinity War, and I absolutely really enjoyed him in this movie, and I'm so excited to see him return in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, directed by the one and only Sam Raimi. Jamie Foxx came back as Electro in this movie, and he is far better as his character in No Way Home than in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He looks a lot better. He's yellow this time and not blue, but I just loved his moments with Tom, especially with some of the villains in this movie, like Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina as Green Goblin and Doc Ock, and they gave him much better material to work with here, and I could just tell that Jamie Foxx was so excited to come back as Electro in this movie, and it was such a major upgrade. What he does as Electro here with his character and how he looks in this movie with the character design and all that, it's a huge step up from Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I really enjoyed him in this movie. He's also a villain, one of the more crucial villain and characters in this movie aside from Green Goblin and Doc Ock, but can't get more into that, sadly, so you're just gonna have to wait till the spoiler review. But I really liked Jamie Foxx in this movie. There are some great moments to be had there, and some that even fans from The Amazing Spider-Man are going to absolutely love. Oh, and Marisa Tomei gives her best performance as Aunt May. This is the best Aunt May has ever been in the MCU. I liked some of her scenes in Homecoming. Wasn't a big fan of her in Far From Home because I didn't like the how they tried to make her like in this relationship with Happy. But here, she finally acts like Aunt May. She's helping people, trying to help Peter, and especially just dealing with this stuff that's happening with Peter's identity being world knowledge. And I loved her in this movie. I can't say anything, of course, but there is a lot of really great stuff that happens with her character in this movie, and I was really surprised. I loved her in this movie. This is easily Marissa's best performance as Aunt May in the movies. Oh, and J.K. Simmons is back as J. Jonah Jameson, and he's great here. There are some great moments to be had in this movie. It just feels so good to have J.K. Simmons return as J. Jonah Jameson because he is one of the best castings in the history of movies. So in the end, the acting, for what I can say, is just terrific. From Tom Holland to Willem Dafoe to Alfred Molina to Zendaya to Benedict Cumberbatch, just everybody brought their A game into this movie, and it absolutely shines. Another thing I want to bring up is the action sequences, and they are easily the best in the trilogy. And adding to that is because you have Spider-Man fighting people with actual powers in the trilogy. Vulture had no powers. Mysterio didn't have powers. These villains, some of them do. And so seeing Spider-Man fight them, and especially with how they're shot and how they look visually, they look fantastic. You can just feel the danger. You can tell just it looks so great. And the action sequences are so cool to watch, especially in the bridge scene when, also in the trailer, when Spider-Man fights Doc Ock. It is so cool. It looks great. And the theme in the background for Doc Ock, it is just really great stuff. And I really enjoyed that. And a lot of action sequences way later on into this movie are also terrific. And I can't go into detail with that until the spoiler review. But they are just brutal. The action sequences here are a lot darker, a lot more brutal, and there's a lot more weight here than they have ever been in this trilogy. This continues to just solidify how this is the most darkest and brutal and emotional film out of this entire trilogy. And No Way Home shows that, and the action sequences here are just terrific. And Tom Holland really shows you, and he captures the character's feeling in that moment just perfectly. The action sequences here are really great. There's a lot of surprising stuff, and when it comes to that, and the third act action sequences are absolutely godlike. The visual effects are easily the best in the trilogy as well, and because they brought back the visual effects artists from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I easily feel like Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the best looking Spider-Man movie we have had up until maybe No Way Home. But the visuals look fantastic. The web swinging, the action sequences, how the characters look, and especially with how they use the CGI and practical stuff for this movie, it all looks fantastic. And one of my biggest issues from Homecoming was that the visual effects at times look hit or miss. Far From Home's visuals looked a lot better, but No Way Home, they looked amazing. They truly shine, and they looked so cinematic, and it's easily one of the best looking MCU movies ever made. It's just so good to look at, especially for a movie like this. And how they were able to pull it off, especially in the pandemic era, is just mind-blowing. It's an absolute achievement. And there's just a lot of great visual shots in this movie, and it's such a blessing to see. It's such a good looking movie. Another thing I have to bring up is that this is, again, the most emotional movie in the trilogy. Homecoming and Far From Home are very lightweight, and they're not as heartfelt as some of the other Spider-Man movies from the Raimi trilogy or the Amazing Spider-Man movies. No Way Home brings that back. No Way Home has the most heart, the most emotion out of each of the Holland movies today. And this feels so different compared to those two movies in terms of writing, tone, and it really shows here. And I just really dug that because No Way Home follows his identity being revealed and how he has to deal with it. And there are consequences to his actions. So what Peter does in this movie, it heavily affects what happens later on. And it really cements you that this is Peter finally learning what being Spider-Man truly means. There is a common complaint that in his other movies that they're not as consequential. No Way Home fixes that. Like from what he tries to do with the spell, like in the trailer, and how he tries to resolve all this, it all goes horribly wrong at times, and it shows you this is the burden of Spider-Man. He's finally learning that this is what being Spider-Man is, and this is what it means. And just seeing, because of how emotional it is, there are a lot of emotional moments in this movie, and I can confirm because there are times where I was about to shed a tear, or I was just crying because there were a lot of emotional stuff in this movie. Cannot say, of course, but you will know what I'm talking about when you see it. It is just amazing and very well done. Michael Giacchino composed the best score out of any Spider-Man MCU movie soundtrack with the No Way Home score. It absolutely slaps. It's amazing. It has a lot of great themes, some remastered, some combined together, and it's absolutely amazing. And like I said before, the villains are great. Green Goblin is the main villain of this entire movie, and I really dug him. And Doc Ock is amazing, and Electro is really great. And then there are two other villains who were also in the trailers, who also came back in this movie. Sandman and Lizard. So this is the same Sandman from Spider-Man 3 and the same Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man 1. And I won't elaborate on what they do. They aren't marketed as much, but there is a reason why. And what they do with them actually is pretty surprising to me in terms of the character and screen time. But I really like them, even though they don't do as much as Green Goblin, Doc Ock, or Electro. But the villains in this movie are so great, and I really liked how instead of giving us another MCU origin Spider-Man villain, they decided to bring back some of the older villains, and thankfully, there is a reason for them to be there. This isn't just nostalgia bait. This isn't fan service for the sake of it. No, there is a reason for them to be here. Like this movie and the story would simply not work if these villains were not involved in this movie. And it shows because adding to fan service. No Way Home, I was really excited for despite, all of this. So I wasn't bothered by the fact that they were going to bring back all these characters. But there was a worry that they could potentially be just way too fan servicey. And a movie that made me feel that way was Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And I felt like that movie's fan service was very hit or miss, and it felt like they didn't do it as right. But I loved how Endgame did the fan service because it felt earned, rewarding. And even in my review for Ghostbusters Afterlife, that's how I felt with the fan service as well. But No Way Home does it perfectly. How they were able to get the villains into all this and all the surprises that you will see when you see this movie, they feel earned. They feel necessary. It doesn't feel out of place or thrown in there, or it was just not necessary. But all of these really exciting things that happen are there for a reason. There's a necessary story purpose for them to happen. And I absolutely loved it. I sat there just in absolute joy with a smile on my face because the fan service stuff was done so well. And this is just another example of how to do fan service right. The setup was good, and the payoff, it really pays off perfectly. And I won't say specifics, but the third act is an absolute treat. It is easily one of the best third acts ever put to the MCU and in a comic book movie. And it is such a delight. And my whole theater, including myself, was absolutely applauding and just cheers, clapping, and all of that. It was just epic. The third act itself is just absolute top tier comic book material in the movies. And I absolutely loved what they did there. And the ending, which I will try to be as vague as possible without spoiling anything, but I absolutely loved the ending of this movie. It ends this story on the best way it could, and I am super excited to see what more they're going to go from here with this character. In conclusion, Spider-Man No Way Home is easily the best movie in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, and it has phenomenal acting, great directing from Jon Watts, and I loved how it capped off this trilogy on such a high note with a lot of amazing moments, and in the end, I'm going to give Spider-Man No Way Home an A+. And I highly recommend you see this movie on the biggest screen you can with as many people as possible. It is absolutely worth it. And at the moment, Spider-Man No Way Home might possibly be my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. We'll just have to wait and see with my second viewing and the spoiler review to see if that is true. Sadly, without spoilers, that's about as much as I can say, because there are a lot of surprises that even the trailers have not revealed. And thankfully, watching the movie made me realize the marketing was actually great, because it doesn't reveal. You do see stuff, but a lot of the surprises are not in the trailer, and I absolutely loved it. Really cool stuff. And I think they did a great job, because the surprises really were surprising. The fan service was so well done to me, and I absolutely enjoyed every second of this movie, from the beginning of this movie all the way to the end of it. And don't forget to stay for the end credit scene, because one of them is awesome and the other one is absolutely huge for the future. So don't forget to stay for that. And I will have my spoiler review out over the next several days. I'm hoping to get that out as soon until I watch the movie again. So don't forget to wait for that as it comes out. And those are my spoiler-free thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home. What did you think about this movie? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And please do not spoil this movie. I don't want spoilers in this video comment section. And just, I would love to hear it. When are you seeing this movie? Or without spoiling it, what did you think about it? I'd love to hear it down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.
It's all my fault. I can't save everyone.